Today, my name is Vicki Townsend, and I'm the founder and president of Divorce Right. And we provide training for HR professionals and company supervisors. And we provide divorce coaching and case management, providing guidance and direction that your divorcing employees so desperately need. Divorce is a huge disruptor, not only to the employee going through the divorce, but for the company that they work for. And our coaches have a unique perspective on divorce that sets us apart. They have a deep understanding of the legal, financial, and emotional aspects of divorce, and they can handle even the highest conflict cases with compassion and professionalism. Our coaches are trained to look at the entire picture, helping your employees make good decisions based on their goals and their expectations. So, if you're an HR benefits manager or an HR benefits provider or consultant, please reach out to us and see if adding our suite of solutions is a good fit for your business. And as a reminder, we have SHRM credits for SHRM members, and we'll be posting a link at the end of this broadcast so that you can grab those. And I want to introduce you to Paulette Rigo. She's that beautiful blonde right there. She is not only my friend, she's my colleague. And she is an incredible certified divorce coach and mediator. She is one of the best in the business and is the director of coaching and case management here at Divorce Right. And today we're going to be talking about chronic illness and divorce in the workplace with our friend Lakita Ferguson. Let me tell you a little bit about her first. Lakita Ferguson is the founder of On Cue Coaching and Consulting. She has an eclectic background as it relates to working with people in different cultures, backgrounds, and industries. After divorcing, she went on a journey to heal and reinvent herself, finding love for herself and a new, loving husband along the way. Her mission continues as she inspires others to heal and create the life they love despite setbacks and disappointments. Lakita holds multiple certifications in neurolinguistic programming, timeline therapy, and divorce transition recovery. As a trauma informed empowerment coach and public speaker, she provides a safe space for others to reach their full potential and live a life of authenticity. Lakita uses a creative approach to personal development and while also facilitating transformation innovations for corporations, organizations, and schools. Welcome, Lakita. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining us
you.
today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
I'm so excited to have you here. So, why don't you tell everybody your story before we get started so they can understand why you have such a passion for this story, but for this subject?
Yes, it's definitely a passion. Chronic illness became a part of my story in my first marriage. I was married at the age of 21, which was just way too young. Didn't know myself, didn't know what it took to be, a wife and in a marriage. And unfortunately, the marriage was tumultuous from the beginning. But I was determined to make it work and try to, ignore the red signs and the red flags that were just all over the place. And unfortunately, about year 7, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and fibromyalgia. Now, during my recovery of that, I really went on a journey to find out more about what is this thing that's affecting my brain. And I found out that multiple sclerosis in German means multiple scars. And so it really was multiple scars on my brain from the trauma that I was experiencing throughout my life, and it was manifesting in my health. And so that marriage came to an end at year 11. And it was really that catalyst for me to take a control of my health. I went on a holistic journey. I started eating better, exercising, and really tapping into the mind body connection so that I could get control of my emotions and heal from the inside out. And throughout that journey, I started blogging. Had no idea about coaching. It wasn't my intention. It was really just my way of connecting. Writing has always been my passion, but I found that it was my voice, and I was able to speak to others that were on a similar journey. And that blog really catapulted me into coaching. And I've been no looking back since then. I found an amazing husband to help me and support me along the way. And I really have learned how important it is to heal so that you could be fully present in a relationship and attract the love that you deserve.
Well, I think it's an amazing, before we got on this call and hit live, we talked about this study published in the journal
Mhm.
Cancer that states that a woman with cancer or other serious illness, like you with multiple sclerosis, is 6
Yeah.
times more likely to be separated or divorced soon after she receives her diagnosis than her male counterpart.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And so can you why don't you do you go into a little bit about that, and then I think Paulette is going to get us started with some other questions.
Yeah, and it's the reason why it's 6 times more likely for a woman is because we are naturally nurturers. And so when we are the ones that are diagnosed, unfortunately, the man is, that discombobulates him. He's not used to handling the logistics of it all. In my case, the cognitive dysfunction can really affect the emotional connection. And so it really is something that can either make or break a marriage. It can intensify what is already wrong in the relationship.
Mhm.
When you're diagnosed with a chronic illness, it just can be the straw that broke the camel's back. And unfortunately, with chronic illnesses, experts say that it does increase the risk of divorce from 45 to 75%.
Wow. 75% of people with chronic illnesses get divorced?
Yes. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Well,
That's sad to say, but true.
it is, it is. Paulette, why don't you take it over from here?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, because I
Mhm.
think when you have the vulnerability and the strength to share your story, so many other people can relate to it. I know myself personally and professionally, I have seen this. So I do know that you are speaking the truth. So more specifically to help, how
Mhm.
does any chronic illness, not necessarily cancer, multiple sclerosis, but it could
Mhm.
be something like diabetes or
Mhm.
like cancer, or something it's
A
really
stroke, maybe? A stroke,
Yeah.
it
Parkinson's?
could be
Yeah.
anything, any physical ailment. But how does it impact the marriage? And what
Mhm.
factors contribute, any specific factors, to having it be a higher risk? Now that we know that it is a higher risk, what is it that causes that risk to skyrocket?
Right. So you mentioned diabetes, heart disease, cancer, stroke, autoimmune conditions. These are typically seen more in older couples. And
Mhm.
so you really see, married couples been married for 30, 40 years and they're getting divorced because there is an increase of this caretaking aspect of it. And
Mm,
sometimes it comes down to not having a full grasp on what it's going to entail to care for someone who is ailing. It changes the dynamic of the relationship. As I mentioned, the women are typically the caregivers, and so now men are challenged to care for someone who has a disease and it's treatment related. They may have to get their medicines together. They have to take them to the doctor's appointments. They have to manage their own stress and their own health, and they really don't have the support that they need. Never mind the fact if you're working like I was with a chronic illness with this lower cognitive function, you don't have the support at work, you're coming home to more stressors, it's just compounding on compounding on compounding, and you don't have the support or know where to turn to get the support. And unfortunately, women, in general, are typically the ones that initiate divorce, but even more so when there's a chronic illness, if she's the one that has it, because they might feel that, oh, my husband isn't, or my spouse isn't giving me adequate support. I'm going to work and I'm not getting adequate support. And it just becomes this storm that brews.
Yeah.
And do you see, like with the stroke, heart attack,
Mhm.
with the older set,
Yeah.
other diseases that are more for the younger set? I know, being a little, age, I don't want to call it ageism, but it's mostly also about the stress of raising children,
Yeah.
because now you're asking the other parent to
Yes.
be more engaged than normal, and the parenting doesn't end when they turn 18. Vicky and I know
Right.
that all too well, and I'm sure many people can shake their head, right? But I mean, the day-to-day parenting
Mhm.
shifts focus once they go off to college, but that day-to-day schedule and stress of having to manage children, and also having to be, as we shift into the role of caregiver, not
Mhm.
just spouse, lover, protector, now you're suddenly a caregiver as well as all the other things. So
Right.
I see that that could be a problem too. So segueing into, how does being a caregiver affect
Mhm.
the spouse's emotional and psychological health?
Yeah, unfortunately, once you're a caregiver, the person that your mate is the primary person that you're concerned about. And so the
Mm,
tendency is to lose sight of your own mental and emotional wellness as you are caring for your partner's needs. And so then there's the long-term chronic stress that you are, personally enduring and while you're caring for your mate, and it weakens your immune system. We've talked, on other shows about the cortisol effect and the secretion of cortisol, and it just compounds. You get headaches, you get tooth grinding, neck pain, heart disease, ulcers, all these other things. So imagine if you're dealing with all of that in addition to being a caregiver. Your weakened immune system, because that's what these increased cortisol and increased adrenaline, if it's too much, it weakens your immune system and then it starts to attack itself, and then you're more vulnerable or susceptible to other cases of flu or a cold or other heart attacks even. So it can definitely erode your own personal mental and emotional health if you're not caring for your mental health. Most times men already are lacking in that area. So if they are the caregiver and they're not caring for their mental health, whether it's talking to a friend or having a hobby, some type of outlet
mm,
to release that stress in a healthy way, then you are more likely to suffer from depression or anxiety. And you don't have your spouse now. Maybe that was the person that you were used to talking to. You don't feel comfortable talking to them now because now you're caring for them. And so it becomes just this added layer of stressors that are compounding and weakening the marriage.
mm. And I don't want to think that there's a list of, best or worst or most egregious or least egregious, uh, shall we say, disabilities or illnesses that
Mhm.
lead to, uh, the breakup of potentially a marriage or adding stress. I know I've seen sometimes a car accident or some
Yes.
sort of accident. It's not really an illness, although it could turn into one. But a broken bone where somebody's on crutches or a
Mhm.
wheelchair, and I don't just mean for the weekend, but they've got
Right.
this going on for a while. It could now turn into being in a wheelchair, or maybe some temporary paralysis, or some temporary brain issues or memory function, which really is a long-term medical
Yeah.
condition. And it manifests, it trickles down into the weave of the family and affecting everyone, and pulling
Yeah.
in the troops of uh, siblings and neighbors and friends and other people to help out. But the longer the illness, should we say, lingers or progresses, and it shifts more into acute to more chronic, it compounds itself in every other aspect of the life. And depending also on the ages of the children, if you've got some teenagers, they might even have to add to pull the weight
Yeah.
too, with maybe some grocery shopping or laundry or helping out with the younger children. And now all of a sudden the family unit is living in more of a stressful situation if they
Mhm.
don't have the resources in which to manage that stress. It can compound itself. So, whether it's a car accident or a real serious, long-term, forever chronic illness, are there certain, chronic illnesses that we should look out for, that are the most, should we say, the biggest culprits of leading to divorce, or is it pretty much fair game?
You mentioned something regarding the memory loss, and that would, I think, be the more matter of fact, there's a study that says the cognitive disability is
Mm,
particularly damaging, whether that is from a car accident, from a diagnosis of an autoimmune disorder or neurological disorder. When there is a cognitive disability that now requires you to show up differently to your mate.
mhm,
I was just watching a video yesterday, and it was a father-daughter relationship, but I think it lends itself to this, where the father had dementia. And so every time the daughter is approaching him, she has to reintroduce herself. or she
Mm.
has to meet him where he is, very delicately. And thankfully, she was doing it in a loving way, but a lot of times that hurts the person that is, not affected by it. They're like, now I have to show up differently to you because you're in a vulnerable situation. And so I really think it comes down to the breakdown in the emotional connection, whether that is from a stroke, from diabetes, from heart disease. When there is a breakdown in the emotional connection on top of a stressor of a chronic illness, that's what really, breaks or damages a marriage.
Yeah. I mean, I see myself not only as a divorce coach and a mediator, but I'm also a Ayurvedic consultant and a yoga teacher trainer. And I've had a
Wow.
lot of wellness education too. So I definitely have to agree with you that it isn't just the physical, but it's the mental, emotional disconnection that
Mhm.
can go deeper into the relationship and start to erode on that tight unit that originally was really solid. So eat your fruits and veggies, everyone, and
Yes,
And
and
something else,
exercise.
yeah,
and
something else that we didn't even mention there that is people are struggling with now is like long COVID and that brain
Yes.
fog. I
sure.
Yeah.
imagine that that's putting quite a stressor on people's marriages as well.
Mhm.
So, you talked about, breaking down the marriage. How do communication patterns and
Mm.
conflict resolution strategies, how they are fighting within a marriage affect the likelihood of divorce when one partner has a chronic illness like this?
Mhm. Well, I mean, the communication is already important in a marriage, but even more so when there is a chronic illness. And if your tendency is to avoid situations, avoid conflict, or assume that your partner already knows what you need, or you're super critical of your mate, or you're even gaslighting them, like none of those things are going to be supportive of communicating in a stressful situation. So it's the gentle conversation and the forthright conversations. As much as you want to be concerned about your mate that you're caring for, you also have boundaries, and things that are important to you, that need to be expressed. And so having an open and honest dialogue of, hey, this is what I'm comfortable with. I'm not so comfortable with changing your diaper, whatever it could be. And maybe we should get an outside service, a nurse to come in and do that. The frustration of it all can just erode the communication. And so if you already have these unhealthy communication strategies, this is the time to really shift and learn a new way to communicate, because all of those things is just going to make it worse. If you're frustrated in your communication, in your tone, in your body language, all of those things are going to make your spouse feel worse. It's going to make yourself feel worse. And so it's really a time to learn new patterns and new ways to meet each other's needs and care for yourself along the way.
And I can imagine the financial burden of all of this chronic
Mhm.
illness can impact a marriage, right? So, are there some strategies around that couples can use to cope?
Yeah, especially when, like, if both spouses were working, and then, I know in my first marriage, I had to go on long-term disability. I couldn't work anymore. And so now I'm getting less of the income. And my former spouse had to take on more of the responsibility. Now he's frustrated, he's resentful. And so there is maybe some times that we need to downsize, or we need to look at the way we're spending money and do things differently, so that it's not so much of a financial strain. And then you have to look at your insurance. Does your insurance cover all the things that you're going to need? Unfortunately, I've seen it happen when you're going through a divorce and it gets down to the settlement. The insurance is typically overlooked, and now you're left without the adequate care that you need. To move forward and take care of yourself, from prescription medications or in-home nurse or whatever the case may be. And so all of those financial aspects really need to be looked at down to the penny,
Mhm.
and the way that you want to maintain the quality of life that you need.
Yeah, and I can imagine that there's also a lot of, mental health issues on the person
Mhm.
that's going through it,
Yeah.
depression and anxiety, that probably gets into this and plays a role unplanned, obviously, not even a part of the illness, but I imagine the
Yeah.
mental health issues play a relationship.
Yeah. Whether it was already there or it's brought on from, the depression or the anxiety from caring for someone, or if the chronic illness is the mental health. The one statistic that I found, and I didn't even think about this, if you have a mate that has like bipolar disorder or something where they have like a manic episode, then you have to be concerned with what's going to happen during the manic episode. Is it
Mhm.
going to be infidelity? Is it going to be excessive spending or things like that? And so all of those are layers and other factors that come into play that maybe you didn't consider or know about at the beginning of the marriage. More angry outbursts because they're depressed or they have anxiety. So all of those things from not just in the marriage, but where to look for outside resources to help you with these things. From the society standpoint, those are the things that we need to be concerned about, whether it's at work or within the community. Where can I turn to get resources, support groups, at work, coaching, therapy, whatever it is, so that it can support us throughout this marriage to deal with all of the chronic illnesses,
Mhm.
the umbrella of it all.
So we're talking about, the what I hope that those that are listening to this see is a couple of things. As we talked about at the beginning, a woman is 6 times more likely to be facing divorce or separation after she is diagnosed with a chronic illness or a severe disease, right? So HR managers, leadership teams, support her. Watch out for
Mhm.
her. If she's just been recently diagnosed with some sort of chronic illness, or she was in a car accident, or, right?
Mhm.
Be aware that she stands a 600% more likelihood of being divorced than her male counterpart. So
Yeah.
just HR managers, hold them, watch out for them, watch their backs, because this is going to be something that, is likely, the more likely that they're going to be going through. So when we talk about, the corporate side, which is what we're here
Mhm.
to really help the corporations help their employers, what strategies can corporations implement to mitigate or even alleviate the impact
Mhm.
of divorce on their bottom line?
When I think about when I was working, one of the big things that I wish I had known about was a divorce coach.
Mhm.
I didn't know anything about a divorce coach. I knew about therapy, but to have someone that could actually help me function at work, to
Right,
help me, to help me with the cognitive aspect of it, to help me get organized because I couldn't think clearly. Um,
Right.
to help me strategize, like what's important to me, what's not important to me, so that I could be present at work. A lot of times, HR managers or even your supervisor may not have the environment that makes it open enough to communicate that. You may
mhm,
be afraid as an employee, like if I tell them this, are they going to use it against me? I was late every day to work. It got down to a point where, I was put on probation and I was late because I had insomnia so bad I couldn't sleep. And
wow,
so I would wake up super late and have to rush and try to get to work, and I only had like a 5-minute window to get there, and so having that communication, that, openness to be able to say, "Hey, this is what I'm going through," and not have the fear
of
of
being fired.
it of being fired,
Right.
or have the fear of like, "Okay, now we need to watch her if she makes a mistake," like, these are the things that, to have a safe environment, emotional intelligence. I mean, in the workplace, that is something that benefits everyone.
Mhm.
But even more so when you're going through a divorce and you have all these emotions that are coming up, you're grieving the way you thought the marriage was going to be. Now you're looking at like, what am I going to do now with my new life? And I have to function in this present environment. I can't handle all these emotions. So having emotional intelligence resources, whether it's someone that comes in, a coach, publications, resources, all of those things are going to help you because what happens is I quit my job on my lunch break because
Mm.
that's how stressed out I was. Like it was bad. It got really bad. But from the HR standpoint or from the corporation standpoint, now you have to worry about rehiring expenses.
Oh,
Now
yeah.
and I was pretty darn good at my job, and so and I was doing multiple jobs. And so it's like, well, now you got to hire somebody else, and train them. And I left abruptly. I didn't even give a notice. That was the type of stress that I was in. And people who are, in any type of relationship breakup, they're 10 times more likely to quit because they
Oh,
just don't
yeah,
have the support.
10%. Ladies
Yeah.
and gentlemen, 10% of
You
divorced
have
Yeah.
a
employees
2-week window
quit.
on there, right? Just
Yeah.
to
They quit within the
Mhm.
year
You're
after
quick
their
to make
divorce is signed.
decisions, yeah.
10%.
Not
And you
always
know,
wise decisions, but quick to make them.
Yes.
right? Isn't
Very
that
erratic, just like didn't no thought to it. It was my lunch break. I said, "Hey, I can't take this anymore." I
I'm
quit.
done, yeah.
done, out, next? So, now so we've talked about some of the sadness, the
Mhm.
problems, and you have such a wonderful story.
Mm.
What impact does chronic illness have on life after divorce?
Well, this may come as a surprise, but I regularly say that being diagnosed with MS saved my life. And I say that because it taught me how important it is to take care of myself. It taught me how to be honest with myself and my true emotions because suppressing how I was really feeling is what wreaked havoc on my body.
Yeah.
And so when you allow the chronic illness to help you show up better in the world, to help you heal whatever traumas you have, whatever undiagnosed things. And it's not to say that your life will forever be, ruled by this diagnosis. It can really be the catalyst to a new and better life. And I know from my personal experience that had I not had the diagnosis, then I would very likely have been still stuck in that first marriage. And I
Right.
would not have gone on the journey to heal myself, to be more vulnerable in the way that I showed up in relationships, to be open and honest. On my first conversation with my current husband, I told him about my diagnosis. First conversation, because it was like, this is what it is, and this is what we'll be dealing with. So I say MS saved my life because it helped me be more authentic to who I am. It helped me take care of myself. It helped me eat right. Um, just have a more meaningful life and really step into my purpose. And so when you allow the newness to be something that is freeing and empowering, to be able to rewrite your story or start over a new chapter of your life and go back to school or start that career that you always wanted or do things with your kids that you never got to do. It can really be something that you are proud of and that you don't regret.
Oh, you're so awesome.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations
Mhm.
on finding love
Yeah.
and
Thank you.
finding a wonderful marriage and finding somebody that saw the beauty in you.
Mm.
And
And reconnecting to yourself, that's what I say
yeah,
too, yeah.
yeah, what a
Finding
lovely
Yeah.
yourself and having the courage to do that, because
Yeah.
that takes a lot of courage, everyone. So,
it does.
if you see somebody that is been diagnosed and they're doing okay, they're managing it. I can't, I wouldn't. They're surviving and thriving with it. Give them a pat on the back. Don't
Yes.
don't hesitate to say, "Good job, you look great, and your performance is
Hmm.
great, and I'm really
It's
proud of
really
you."
good.
Because
Yeah,
Yeah.
that means everything to them.
it
Yes.
does. It
Illness
does.
tends to disconnect you from who you think you are. So
It
that's a lot
does.
about what wellness is about being connected to self and others. So
Yeah.
on your
Absolutely.
job.
Yes.
Absolutely. Lakita, how can people reach you if they need to find you?
Sure. So I am on all social media as Coach Q Simone. You can also reach me on my website at lakitasimone.com. I'm doing more speaking engagements, so you might see me on whether it's YouTube or live, or I get in touch with school districts. I love doing professional development for corporations. So those are the ways that you can reach out to me, or you can call and text me at 586-684-5994.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today
Thank you
and
for having
bringing
me.
bringing to the forefront a question, I mean, a topic that is, at on its best day is uncomfortable for some, but
Mhm.
you've made it very easy for us to have a conversation about supporting all of our employees that face
Yeah.
a chronic illness and some of the other side effects of that that may or may not be seen. So again, employers, if you do have a woman that has been diagnosed with a chronic illness, have her back.
Yeah.
Look out for her. She's got some stuff going on. So
Hmm.
thank you so much for joining us. Next week, we will be here on our LinkedIn Live Thursday at 1 p.m. And for May, we will be talking about its Mental Health Awareness Month. So we're going to be talking about a lot of things that impact mental health during the divorce process with all of our special guests. But we will still be here in April talking about some really great things around divorce and how we can help your company and your employees save themselves time, money, and heartache. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Paulette. Thank you, Coach Q. So glad to see you all today, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.